Welcome to week 3. In week 3, we've got 3 chapters due plus a start on the financials. So to start with, we've got operations. This is the day-to-day operations of your business. The investor is going to want to know that you understand what you have to do to get the job done. You know, as we say, you can have a great idea. You got to build a company around it now. So again, start with your pitch. What is your facility going to look like? Go to websites like loopnet.com, and they'll give you some ideas of what commercial property will cost. Because even if you're going to use a home office in the beginning, eventually, if you do well, you're going to need to go to commercial space. Or you may have limitations on using your home office set by homeowners, zoning. There's lots of things, but everything in square feet. Don't be surprised when if you do retail space, you're looking at $125 a foot. And again, that's rent. And if you need 1,000 square feet, it's going to cost you $125,000 a year. So you've got, 10 grand a month that you're going to have to come up with just to pay your rent. So again, look at, what type of facility you're going to have and where it's going to be located. And again, you do need at least one office, even if it's a home office, even if you're working online. But you have to think about, do I need manufacturing? Do I need assembly? Do I just need a place for people to work? In any case, you need commercial property in order to do it right. So at least budget for it. If you can cut it short by using home or using home-based consultants, that just means more money in your pocket. But again, try to think about what size facility would be best if you could get it and budget for it. Then think about what are the key things about my business. The main thing I look for is, do you know what inputs are needed? What's the process to get it to the final? And then what does the deliverable look like? In the case of a recording, you've got to license the music. You've got to get all the music people together. You've got to get your engineers together, get it all rehearsed out. Then you record. Then you do your mastering. So again, 3 parts. Then you have to make what it is you're going to sell. Is it a download? Is it a DVD? A CD? You're going to go to vinyl. I'm seeing more vinyl again. So you have to think about what are the steps in getting my product from conception to a deliverable product that people will pay for. Then think about what is your advantages. And one of the things they're going to look for is cost and time efficiencies. What are you doing that's different that sets you apart? Because again, investors have lots of choices. And if there's 3 recording studios, he wants to invest in one. Whoever gives him the best bang for his buck and pays attention to his money is the one he's probably going to invest in. Competitive advantage. Think about, again, differentiation. What is the advantage of you over your competition? And how have you integrated that into your operations? And then ways to control costs. Investors always like to know that you're going to be a good steward of their money. They want to make sure that you're not just going to buy a fancy car and get a fancy office with their money just because you can, but that you're applying the money to a way that generates revenue for the company. So that's operations. Now technology, that's the hardware that you need. If you don't have a lot of it, like you're doing consulting, you might just have a laptop. Well, you can integrate that into your operations. The main thing I look for there is you're going to need some type of computer system, some type of communication system, and you're going to need a website. So you need to at least mention those 3 things. Now, if you're hardware heavy, like a recording studio, a film studio, where you got to have a lot of equipment, I like to see a separate chapter. So in those cases, again, start with the pitch, talk about your technology, how you're going to apply it. Then you're going to show your understanding of the technology. You know that this is the right stuff for your particular industry. What is your plan for implementation? Because again, If it's expensive stuff, you may not be able to afford to buy it all at once. If so, when's it going to start working? The website, think about the hosting and the costs. And again, you can combine it with your operations chapter if necessary. The third chapter is management. Now, this is actually the one I start with whenever I look at business plans, because most of them are concept or startup. So, hey, you haven't got a product yet, so the only thing you've really got is your team. So you want to make sure the right team's in place before you start looking at the rest of it. So in the management chapter, again, start with your pitch. Identify what key positions you need to fill. Need at least one person in every company. Corporations are required to have at least one employee. LLCs, we realize the money flows through. But what we're trying to do is make sure that you know at least one person that'll be there, because again, the investor's going to want to make sure somebody's going to be there to do the work. So pick at least one name. It can be you, it can be somebody else if you want, but also identify the other key positions. If you don't have people in place, write it like a job description. You know, what kind of person are you looking for? If you do have names, tell me about them. 2 things I focus on. What have you done? What have you done lately? So again, experience and what successes have you had? You know, people always say, well, why do we have to worry about that? Well, people want to know that the people have been successful already, because again, that adds credibility to your company. And then the last couple of things, one is if you have a corporation, you have to have a board of directors. Who's going to be on it? If you are an LLC, you might want to have an advisory committee. Big difference between the two is liability. The board of directors do have liability. The advisory committee does not. So you don't really have to listen to them if you don't want to. But usually they're recommended by lenders especially. And the last thing is a flow chart. People love pictures. They like to see who's responsible for what in the business. Put together a flow chart. Word has a couple of examples, or you could draw your own. Those are the 3 written chapters. In addition to this, you start the financials, and you're going to do 2 tabs: monthly marketing budget and the monthly sales budget. Now, when you start up your spreadsheet, it's going to ask you for a password. It's BPD lowercase. First thing you need to do is make sure tabs show up at the bottom of the page. If they don't, click on the green button in the upper left-hand corner. It'll go to full screen. The tabs will appear at the bottom. If you don't see the monthly marketing budget, there'll be arrows in the lower left corner. Click on the one that points to the left. It'll scroll you to the left until you find it. A lot of times people aren't that familiar with Excel, but you have to do it in this class. So the first thing is marketing, and there we just want to know where you're going to spend your money. You have to do all 3 years. Think about how much you're going to spend. What I look for is you're going to be spending about 10 to 20% of your sales on marketing. So plan to do that. Where you spend it, again, I like to see some traditional marketing. I also like to see that you account for your memberships and organizations, plus your entertainment, plus your travel expenses. I like to see a little bit of money in each of these. Again, if you don't budget for it, you won't get it. If you forget to do it and you come back later and find out you need to travel to find customers, where's that money going to come from? Again, the investor is going to be planning on what you tell him. So he or she planned on. So again, those are the kinds of things you want to look for. Now in sales, each of the years has 2 parts. An upper part, which you tell how many units you're going to sell, and then the lower part, which feeds the upper part. That's just kind of the way we designed it. You have a unit, you have an item, and again, if I see product 1, 2, 3, and 4, I have no idea what you're selling. Change the name in the upper part. Down in the lower part, it'll automatically fill in the table. And what you want to do is tell me what your unit price is. So if you've got tickets, average sale price $10. If you're managing people, you might say, well, we need to make at least $5,000 to $10,000 from each of these people. So put that in as your unit price. You have commissions. If you have to pay a commission to somebody like iTunes, they're going to take 30% off the top. This is money you never see. So just think of it that way. Yeah, the price is this, but hey, they're going to take 30%. Returns and allowances, especially if you do retail, a certain number of things will come back. That's money you got to give back, so you don't get to keep it. So think about, am I going to have to pay a commission, and am I going to have people returning stuff? Cost of goods sold is a different animal, though. That's what your variable cost is for that particular product. So a t-shirt, if you're having it printed and they're providing everything, they're going to charge you, $5 a shirt. That's your cost of goods. If you weren't selling t-shirts, you wouldn't have that expense. Big difference between variable and fixed is variable is directly associated with each of the products. Fixed means you got to pay it anyway. That's your rent. That's your salaries. That's your lawyers. Those are people that that are getting paid based on the fact that you needed all these things done, regardless of how much money you made. So that's pretty much what to do this week. We go into a little bit more detail in the archive, so if you need more detail on that, it's there, or look at my keynotes. So thanks for coming in for week 3, and we'll move on to week 4.